Hi, my name is Lindsay Ofrias. I am a PhD candidate in the anthropology department, and I'd like to begin by thanking everybody at the Center for Health and Wellbeing for making my research possible through the Grand Health Challenge Grant. Given that I am currently writing up my dissertation, I thought that maybe the best way to share my results is to go through how I'm now incorporating my fieldwork into my written dissertation. So I based on the work that I did in Ecuador on the political economy of oil contamination and people's struggles for survival and conservation, I have 6 main chapters. Just looking, I have my file right here. Chapter 1 is currently titled The Amazon's Chernobyl and the Mafia. And that's where I look at a lawsuit that a group of Ecuadorians put forward to try to clean up an oil disaster in the Amazon, and how they were then countersued as conspirators and fraudsters, and what they're now doing to try to deal with the disaster in the face of corporate impunity. And not just corporate impunity, but criminalization for their work. Chapter 2 looks at the currency of contamination. This is where I lay out my theoretical framework of instead of just seeing contamination as the outcome or collateral damage of capitalist pursuits, to really think about the harmful effects of contamination as being productive for certain capitalist interests. So really trying to shift focus to the interaction between biomedicine, between industrial remediation and extraction itself as producing profit, and how destruction itself can be productive for certain groups of people. Chapter 3, Ecologies of Health, that's where I go into my work that I did with committees, volunteer committees they were plaintiffs in the original lawsuit who are now creating their own reparations committees, one of which is a cancer committee, and I got to visit a bunch of cancer patients and work alongside the volunteer healers and really get a sense of how do they envision health. And I call it ecologies of health because their idea of health is based on keeping their environment healthy. Chapter 4, Politics of Environmental Cleanup, goes more into this idea of ecologies of health by looking at their other reparations committee, the Environmental Reparations Committee, where they are trying to clean up the oil in their backyards using what they call trabajadores de la naturaleza, which are nature's helpers or nature's workers. So that's fungi that have these powers of their digestive systems to break down the recalcitrant bonds of petroleum. And so this is a very different idea than using oil-derived chemicals to break down oil wastes, which is what the Ecuadorian government promotes. The next chapter, Progress and Loss, is going to look at a dispute between 2 indigenous leaders over new oil projects sponsored by the state. So this chapter is to kind of complicate the way people are organizing so that it doesn't just sound like everybody's against oil, because it's actually so much more complicated than that. And that's what this chapter looks at. And it also takes into account how gender shapes certain disputes over whether or not to extract oil or not. Finally, chapter 6, Expanding Extractive Frontier. I move into the South Central Amazon, where the oil companies haven't actually come in yet. It's like exploring for oil. There's prospectors who are there. So what I learned while being there is that people, even though there was no oil spills or anything of the sort yet, there was this kind of contamination of the social fabric in which people felt spiritually and psychologically harmed by just the negotiations that were going on. So that helped me kind of zoom out and think about contamination and toxicity from a broader or more culturally specific framework. There's much more to say, but I think I'm already over my 5 minutes, so I'll leave it there. And thank you again to everybody.